They called her a leech. They called her a gold digger who trapped their son into a marriage he didn't want. For 3 years, Eliza stood in the center of the Sterling family living room, head bowed, taking every insult Beatrice Sterling threw at her. But the moment Leon Sterling handed her those divorce papers on their 3rd anniversary, thinking he was finally freeing himself from a nobody, he made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't just divorce his wife, he declared war on the hidden owner of the very conglomerate that was keeping his family's business alive. He thought he was throwing out the trash. He had no idea he was evicting the Queen. And when he finds out, it's going to be absolute carnage. The rain in Seattle always felt like a warning. It battered the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Sterling estate, a sprawling Gothic revival mansion in the heart of the Highlands, blurring the city lights into streaks of grey and gold. Inside, the atmosphere was colder than the storm. Eliza adjusted the collar of her simple, off-the-rack beige dress. It was 3 years old, the same dress she had worn the first time she met Beatrice Sterling, her mother-in-law. It had a small fray on the hem now, but Eliza didn't care. Tonight was her 3rd anniversary with Leon. She had spent the entire afternoon cooking his favorite meal, a slow-roasted lamb with rosemary, a recipe she'd learned from his grandmother before she passed. The clock on the mantel chimed 8 about p.m. "He's not coming for the food, you know," a sharp voice cut through the silence. Eliza didn't flinch. She turned to see Beatrice Sterling descending the grand staircase. Beatrice was a woman who wore her wealth like armor, vintage Chanel, diamonds that cost more than a small house, and a permanent sneer painted on her face. Behind her trailed Sarah, Leon's younger sister, who was scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. "He promised," Eliza said softly. "It's our anniversary." Sarah snorted, finally looking up. "Anniversary? Please. Leon has been trying to figure out how to get rid of you since month 6. You're like a stain on the family reputation that just won't wash out." "That's enough, Sarah," Beatrice said, though her tone lacked any reprimand. She walked over to the dining table, picking up a crystal wine glass and inspecting it for dust. Finding none, she set it down with a clatter. "But she's right, Eliza. Look at you. You have no pedigree, no connections. My son is the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. He needs a partner, not a housekeeper." Eliza looked down at her hands. "I love him, Beatrice." "Love doesn't pay the shareholders," Beatrice spat. The heavy oak front doors swung open. A gust of wind blew into the hall, followed by Leon Sterling. He looked exhausted. His suit was soaked at the shoulders, his tie loosened. He was handsome in that sharp, jagged way. Dark hair, piercing blue eyes that used to look at Eliza with warmth, but had grown icy over the last year. "Leon!" Eliza stepped forward, a small smile breaking on her face. "You made it." "I made the lamb." Leon held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. He didn't look at the food. He didn't look at his mother. He looked straight at Eliza, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was hollow. "Happy anniversary, darling," Beatrice cooed, stepping between them to kiss Leon on the cheek. "Did you bring it?" Leon nodded. He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs. "A gift?" No. Leon wasn't the type to wrap gifts in manila envelopes. She felt the blood drain from her face. "What is this?" she whispered, as he thrust the envelope toward her. "Just take it," Leon said, his voice cracking slightly. "Please, don't make a scene." Eliza took the envelope. Her hands trembled as she undid the clasp. She slid the papers out. The bold text at the top screamed at her. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." The room went silent, save for the ticking of the clock and the rain against the glass. "You're divorcing me?" Eliza asked. The words felt like broken glass in her throat. "It's for the best, Eliza," Leon said, turning away to pour himself a scotch. He couldn't even look her in the eye. "Sterling Enterprises is going through a merger. The board, they think my image needs an update. I need a wife who can navigate the corporate world, someone with status. Jessica Thorne comes from a family that can secure our supply chain in Europe. You're just Eliza." "Just Eliza," she repeated. "Finally," Sarah cheered from the couch. "I can invite my friends over again without being embarrassed." Beatrice smirked, crossing her arms. "We're being generous, Eliza. Leon has agreed to give you the apartment in the city and $50,000. It's more than a girl from the orphanage deserves." Eliza looked at Leon. "Is that what I am to you? An image problem?" Leon downed the scotch in one gulp. "It's business, Eliza. You don't understand business? You never have. You spend your days gardening and reading. You don't know the pressure I'm under. I need an equal." An equal. The irony was so sharp it almost made her laugh. Eliza placed the papers on the table, right next to the cold roast lamb. She picked up a pen from the table, a cheap promotional pen Leon had left there days ago. "You're right, Leon," she said. Her voice changed. The tremble was gone. It was replaced by a cold, steel resonance that none of them had ever heard before. "I don't understand your business." She signed the papers with a flourish. "Eliza?" Leon turned back, surprised by her lack of tears. He expected begging. He expected her to fall to her knees. "You want a divorce?" Eliza said, capping the pen. "You have it, but keep the apartment and keep the money. I don't want a penny from the Sterling family." "Don't be a martyr," Beatrice scoffed. "You have nowhere to go. You'll be on the streets in a week." Eliza walked to the coat rack and grabbed her trench coat. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't take the wedding photo from the mantel. She simply buttoned her coat. "Goodbye, Leon," she said. She didn't look at Beatrice or Sarah. "Eliza, wait. It's pouring outside," Leon said, a flicker of guilt finally hitting him. "I can have the driver take you to a hotel." "I'll manage," she said. She opened the heavy oak doors and stepped out into the storm. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing her out of the life she had tried so hard to build for 3 years. Inside, Beatrice clapped her hands. "Well, that went better than expected. Sarah, call the caterers. We need to plan an engagement party for Leon and Jessica." Leon stared at the door, a strange pit forming in his stomach. He shook it off. "It's business," he told himself. "She was holding me back." The rain was torrential. Eliza walked down the long, winding driveway of the Sterling estate. She was soaked to the bone within seconds, her cheap heels sinking into the mud at the edge of the pavement. She walked for 10 minutes until she reached the main road, completely out of sight of the mansion. She stopped under the shelter of a large oak tree. She reached into the inner pocket of her coat, a pocket she had sewn herself, and pulled out a phone. It wasn't the cracked iPhone 8 Leon had seen her use for years. It was a prototype Virtu, encased in titanium, a device that didn't technically exist on the consumer market yet. She dialed a single number. It rang once. "Status?" A deep voice answered instantly. "It's done, Michael," Eliza said. "Come get me. Location? The bottom of the Sterling driveway. And Michael?" "Yes, Mom?" "Bring the Maybach. I'm done with the disguise." "Understood. ETA 2 minutes." Eliza hung up. She wiped the rain from her face. She reached up and pulled the pins from her hair, letting the wet, dark locks cascade down her back. She took off the cheap glasses she wore. She had 20/20 vision, but the glasses made her look meek, harmless. She threw them into a puddle. 2 minutes later, a pair of blinding LED headlights cut through the darkness. A sleek, black, armoured Maybach Pullman pulled up silently to the curb. It was a vehicle worth more than the entire Sterling home. The back door opened, and a man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit stepped out holding a large umbrella. This was Michael, her chief of staff, and the only person who knew the truth. "Miss Vance," Michael said, bowing his head slightly as he shielded her from the rain. "I have a change of clothes in the car." "Thank you, Michael." Eliza slid into the back seat. The interior smelled of rich leather and absolute power. She stripped off the wet beige dress and tossed it into a hamper. She pulled on the clothes Michael had prepared, a sharp white power suit from Alexander McQueen, a pair of red-bottomed Louboutins, and a diamond tennis bracelet that she had designed herself. She checked her reflection in the vanity mirror. The meek housewife was gone. Staring back was Eliza Vance, the ghost CEO of Vance Global, a multinational conglomerate that owned half the shipping routes in the Pacific, 3 major tech firms, and, ironically, the bank that held the debt for Sterling Enterprises. "Where to, Miss Vance?" Michael asked from the driver's seat. "The penthouse?" "No," Eliza said, her eyes narrowing as she looked at the tablet screen embedded in the console. "Take me to the office. We need to call an emergency board meeting." "At this hour?" "Yes. And Michael, get me the file on Sterling Enterprises' current loan agreements." Michael glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Are we playing with our food, ma'am?" "Leon wanted an equal," Eliza said, pouring herself a glass of sparkling water. "He wanted someone who understands business. I'm going to show him exactly how much I understand." "By the way," Michael added, merging onto the highway, "Mr. Sterling's new intended fiancée, Jessica Thorne. Her family's company, Thorne Logistics. We just acquired their supplier in Germany this morning. We own their supply chain." Eliza smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "Is that so? Then I suppose the engagement party might be a little under-equipped." Back at the Sterling estate, the celebration was in full swing. Leon was on the phone with Jessica. "It's done, Jess," Leon said, loosening his tie further. "She's gone. We can announce the partnership tomorrow." "Oh, Leon, that's wonderful." Jessica's voice was high and grating. "My father is going to be so pleased. This merger will save your stock price." "Yeah," Leon said, looking out the window. "It will." Suddenly the lights in the mansion flickered. "That's odd," Beatrice said, looking up at the chandelier. Then Leon's phone beeped. Then it beeped again. Then it started buzzing incessantly. "What is it?" Sarah asked. Leon pulled the phone away from his ear. Notifications were flooding the screen. Stock alerts, emails from the board. "Alert. Vance Global announces immediate audit of all subsidiary loans." "Alert. Sterling Enterprises credit rating under review." "Alert. Major investor pulls out of North Sea project." "What the hell?" Leon muttered. "Why is Vance Global auditing us? We're small fish to them." "Vance Global?" Beatrice paled. "The billionaire recluse. Why would they care about a divorce?" "They don't know about the divorce," Leon said, scrolling frantically. "This must be a coincidence, but... God, look at the timestamp. The audit was authorized 12 minutes ago." 12 minutes ago? Sarah frowned. "That's right when Eliza left." Beatrice laughed nervously. "Don't be ridiculous, Sarah. You think Eliza has anything to do with Vance Global? She probably doesn't even know what a stock option is. She's walking to a homeless shelter right now." Leon stared at his phone. He tried to call his CFO, but the line was busy. "I need to go to the office," Leon said, grabbing his keys. "Now!" Jessica shouted over the phone. "But I'm coming over." "Don't come!" Leon snapped. "Something is wrong. The bank just froze our operating accounts." As Leon rushed out the door into the storm, he didn't see the woman walking down the road, because she wasn't walking. She was already miles away, sitting in a high-rise office made of glass and steel, looking down at the city like a god on Mount Olympus. Eliza sat at the head of a massive conference table made of black marble. 12 board members, hastily summoned via video link, were on the screens. "Ms. Vance," the chairman of the board said, "to what do we owe the pleasure of your return? We thought you were on sabbatical." "The sabbatical is over," Eliza said. Her voice was projected through the room, commanding absolute silence. "I have identified a liability in our portfolio, a company called Sterling Enterprises." "Sterling?" One of the board members shuffled papers. "They're a mid-cap firm, family-run. We hold their debt, but they've been reliable with payments. They are leveraging their future on a merger with Thorn Logistics," Eliza said. "I happen to know that Thorn Logistics is insolvent. Their books are cooked." "How do you know that?" "Because I know people," Eliza said vaguely. "If Sterling merges with Thorn, they will default on their loans to us within the quarter. I want to call in the debt now." "Ms. Vance, calling in the debt will bankrupt them. They don't have the liquidity to pay us back immediately." Eliza leaned forward. "Exactly. When they can't pay, we seize their assets. I want the Sterling building, I want their patents, and I want it done by Friday." "This seems personal, Eliza," the chairman noted cautiously. "It's just business, Arthur," Eliza echoed Leon's words from an hour ago. "Just business." She cut the feed. Michael stepped forward from the shadows. "The debt call has been issued. Leon Sterling will receive the notification in approximately 3, 2, 1. In his car, speeding down the wet highway, Leon's phone screamed with a special ringtone he had set for critical emergencies. He glanced at the screen. "Notice of default. Immediate repayment required, $45,000. Leon slammed on the brakes, his car fishtailing on the wet asphalt. He stared at the number. $45 million. Due immediately. "Who is doing this?" he screamed in the empty car. He had no idea that the nobody he had just divorced was currently holding the pen that wrote his destiny. The morning sun hit the glass facade of the Sterling Enterprises building, but inside the mood was funereal. Leon Sterling hadn't slept. He sat at his mahogany desk, his tie thrown on the floor, staring at a financial report that looked like an autopsy. "It doesn't make sense," Leon muttered, rubbing his temples. "Vance Global has been a silent partner for a decade. Why call the loan now? Why at midnight?" Jessica Thorne sat on the edge of his desk, swinging her legs. She was wearing a bright pink suit that clashed horribly with the somber mood of the room. She was scrolling through Instagram. "Leon, baby, stop worrying," she said, popping gum. "My dad said he'd make a call. The Thorne family has pull. We'll just get a loan from another bank to pay off Vance." "You don't understand, Jess," Leon snapped, losing his patience. "Vance Global isn't just a bank. They are the market. If they flagged us as high risk, no other bank will touch us. We are radioactive." The intercom buzzed. It was his secretary, her voice trembling. "Mr. Sterling, there are people here to see you. I told you, no press." "It's not the press, sir. It's the asset seizure team from Vance Global." Leon's blood ran cold. He stood up so fast his chair toppled over. "Seizure team, we have 48 hours to cure the default." He stormed out of his office, Jessica trailing behind him, looking confused rather than worried. In the lobby, men in dark suits were already tagging the furniture. A tall man with salt and pepper hair and a face carved from granite stood in the center. directing them. It was Michael. But Leon didn't recognize him. To Leon, Michael had just been a silhouette in a dark car the night before. "Excuse me," Leon shouted, marching up to Michael. "You have no right to be here. Get your hands off my reception desk." Michael turned slowly. He adjusted his cufflinks. "Mr. Sterling, I am Michael Thorne, no relation to your fiancée, I assume. I represent the office of the CEO of Vance Global. You are in breach of contract clause 14B. I want to see the CEO," Leon demanded, getting in Michael's face. "I want to talk to him, man to man. I can explain that this is a misunderstanding." Michael raised an eyebrow. A microscopic smirk played on his lips. "Him? Yes, him. Mr. Vance, or whoever runs the show. Get me a meeting." "The CEO is incredibly busy," Michael said smoothly. "However, there is the Diamond Gala tomorrow night. The CEO will be making a rare public appearance. If you can get close enough, perhaps you can plead your case." "The Diamond Gala." Jessica perked up. "I have tickets. My dad bought a whole table. Leon, this is perfect. We go. We look amazing. We charm this old CEO guy, and we fix everything." Leon exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Fine, fine. We'll go to the gala, but tell your men to stop tagging my chairs." Michael signaled his team to pause. "Very well. We will suspend seizure operations until Monday morning. That gives you the weekend to say your goodbyes." Michael turned to leave. As he walked out the glass doors, he pulled out his phone and typed a quick message. "The mouse has taken the cheese. He will be at the gala." While Leon was sweating in boardrooms, Eliza was sitting in a salon chair in the private penthouse suite of the Four Seasons. The divorce news hadn't hit the tabloids yet. To the world, Eliza was still invisible, but to the staff of Vance Global, she was a hurricane that had just made landfall. "We've acquired the remaining 40% of Thorne Logistics," her chief financial officer said, standing by the window with a tablet. "We now have controlling interest. We can shut down their factories in Munich and Detroit by noon." "Do it," Eliza said calmly. Her eyes were closed as a stylist applied a cooling gel mask to her face. "But don't announce it yet. Let Jessica walk the red carpet thinking she's an heiress. I want the stock to crash while she's drinking champagne." "Brutal," the CFO murmured, clearly impressed. "And regarding the sterling debt, let them sweat until the gala." Eliza sat up. The stylist removed the mask. Eliza looked in the mirror. The fatigue of the last 3 years, the bags under her eyes from crying herself to sleep, the worry lines from Beatrice's constant criticism, seemed to have vanished. "Michael," Eliza called out. Michael stepped in from the hallway. "Yes, Mom." "The dress. Did you secure it? The Midnight Phoenix?" "Yes." The designer was reluctant to sell it. He wanted it for the Met Gala. But once I mentioned your name, he personally flew it over from Milan. It's in the dressing room." Eliza stood up and walked into the adjoining room. On a mannequin stood a dress that defied gravity. It was a deep, shimmering obsidian black that faded into a burning crimson at the bottom, embroidered with thousands of black diamonds. It was aggressive, regal, and unapologetic. It was the complete opposite of the beige rags Leon liked her in. "Perfect," she whispered. Back at the Sterling estate, Beatrice was in a frenzy. "Jessica, you must wear the blue," Beatrice shouted, holding up a dress. "It matches Leon's eyes. We need the press to see you as the new power couple." Eliza was so drab. "You need to shine." "I know, Beatrice," Jessica snapped, checking her phone. "But my dad isn't answering my calls. I need his credit card for the jewelry." "Use Leon's card," Beatrice said dismissively. "I tried. It declined." The room went silent. Beatrice froze. "Declined?" "Yeah, Must be a glitch, Jessica laughed nervously. Anyway, I have some old jewelry. It'll be fine. As long as we get a photo with the Vance CEO, we're set. Who is he anyway? Some old guy? Nobody knows, Beatrice said, pacing. He's a ghost, but ghosts love money. And we have the Sterling name. That still means something. Beatrice walked over to the fireplace. On the floor sat a box of Eliza's things that the maid had packed up. Old books, gardening gloves, a small photo album. Beatrice kicked the box. "Burn this trash," she told the maid. "I don't want a single trace of that woman left in this house when Leon returns with his victory." As the maid picked up the box, a small piece of paper fluttered out. It was a receipt for a storage unit in downtown Seattle, paid for 5 years in advance. The name on the billing address wasn't Eliza Sterling. It was E.V. Holdings. Beatrice didn't see it. She was too busy imagining her son on the cover of Forbes, unaware that the magazine was currently drafting a feature story on the mystery woman who had just bought half the city. The Diamond Gala was the event of the season. The grand ballroom of the Plaza was dripping in crystals. Every billionaire, tech mogul, and politician in the state was there. Flashbulbs popped like gunfire as limousines pulled up. Leon and Jessica stepped out of a rented Bentley. Their driver had quit that morning. Leon looked sharp in a tuxedo, but his eyes were darting around nervously. Jessica was clinging to his arm, wearing a blue dress that was a size too small, smiling forcefully at the cameras. "Smile, Leon," she hissed. "They can smell fear." "I just need to find the CEO," Leon muttered. "Where is the Vance table?" They walked the red carpet. A reporter from Business Insider thrust a microphone in Leon's face. "Mr. Sterling, is it true that Sterling Enterprises is facing a liquidity crisis? Comments on the rumors of a hostile takeover?" "No comment," Leon said, pushing past. "Sterling Enterprises is stronger than ever." "What about your wife, Eliza?" another reporter shouted. "Where is she tonight?" "We are separated," Leon said curtly. "This is Jessica Thorne, my partner." They hurried inside. The ballroom was packed. At the far end, on a raised dais, sat the VIP table for Vance Global. It was currently empty, save for Michael and a few other executives. "There," Leon said. "That's the table. Come on." He dragged Jessica through the crowd, ignoring friends who tried to wave at him. He reached the velvet rope guarding the VIP section. "I need to speak to the CEO," Leon told the security guard. "I'm Leon Sterling." "The CEO hasn't arrived yet," the guard said, crossing his massive arms. "We'll wait," Beatrice said, appearing behind them like a bad omen. She was draped in fur. "We aren't going anywhere." Suddenly the music stopped. The chatter in the room died down. A hush swept across the ballroom, starting from the entrance and rippling forward like a wave. "What's happening?" Jessica asked, standing on her tiptoes. The spotlight swiveled toward the top of the grand staircase. The master of ceremonies spoke into the microphone, his voice echoing through the silent hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the host of tonight's event, the chairwoman of Vance Global, Ms. Eliza Vance." Leon froze. He felt his heart stop beating. "Eliza?" he whispered. "No, it's a common name." "It can't be," Beatrice hissed. "She's in a gutter somewhere." Then she stepped out. Eliza stood at the top of the stairs. She was a vision of dark, terrifying beauty. The black and red dress flowed around her like liquid fire. Her hair was sleek, pulled back to reveal diamond earrings that caught the light with blinding intensity. She held her head high, her posture radiating a power that Leon had never seen in his 3 years of marriage. She began to descend the stairs. Every eye in the room was glued to her. "My God," a man next to Leon whispered. "That's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." Leon couldn't breathe. It was her. It was Eliza. But it wasn't his Eliza. This wasn't the woman who made roast lamb and darned his socks. This was a queen. She reached the bottom of the stairs. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. She walked straight toward the VIP table. She walked right past Leon. She didn't even look at him. She walked past him as if he were a piece of furniture. The scent of her perfume, a rare, expensive oud, wafted over him. "Eliza!" Leon choked out, his voice small. She stopped. She turned slowly on her heel. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. She looked at him. Her eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth he used to take for granted. She looked at Jessica, then at Beatrice. "Excuse me?" she said. Her voice was crystal clear. "Do I know you?" Leon stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Eliza, it's me." "Leon, what is this? What are you doing?" Eliza smiled. It was a polite, devastatingly distant smile. "I'm afraid you have me confused with someone else," she said, loud enough for the nearby reporters to hear. "My name is Eliza Vance. I own the bank that is currently foreclosing on a small company called Sterling Enterprises. Is that you?" "You—" Beatrice gasped, clutching her pearls. "You lied to us. You played us." "Security," Eliza said softly, not looking away from Leon's eyes. Two guards stepped forward. "These people are trespassing in the VIP area. Please escort them to the general admission section. Or better yet, the exit." "You can't do this," Jessica shrieked. "Do you know who my father is?" Eliza laughed. It was a dark, rich sound. "Oh, yes. Jessica Thorne. I just wanted to let you know. I bought your father's company this morning. You're currently unemployed. I'd suggest you save your energy for the job hunt." Jessica's jaw dropped. The crowd gasped. Flashbulbs went crazy. Leon stood there, paralyzed. He looked at the woman he had discarded less than 48 hours ago. He realized, with a sickening lurch in his stomach, that he hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost the world. "Enjoy the party," Eliza said. She turned her back on them and walked to her table, sitting down in the center seat. "Get them out," the head of security barked. As Leon was dragged away by the guards, struggling to keep his dignity, he looked back one last time. Eliza was laughing with the senator, holding a glass of champagne, shining brighter than any diamond in the room. He had divorced a billionaire, and now she was going to bury him. The morning after the Diamond Gala, the world woke up to a new reality. The front pages of every financial newspaper featured photos of Eliza in her black and red dress, headlines screaming, "The Queen of Vance Global Revealed." Contrasting with her glory were the tabloid photos. Leon being dragged out by security, his bow tie askew, a look of utter devastation on his face. The headline read simply, "The Billion-Dollar Mistake." Leon didn't go home that night. He couldn't face Beatrice. He slept in his office on the leather couch, woken at 7 a.m. by the sound of shredders. He stumbled out into the bullpen. The office was chaotic. But it wasn't his employees working. It was a team of auditors wearing Vance Global lanyards. Michael was standing in the center of the room, directing the operation like a conductor. "What is this?" Leon demanded, his voice raspy from lack of sleep and too much scotch. "You said we had until Monday to cure the default." Michael didn't even turn around. That offer was contingent on good faith negotiations. After the scene you caused at the gala, the board decided to accelerate the timeline. We executed the seizure clauses at 6:01 a.m. this morning. "You can't just take my company," Leon shouted, grabbing Michael's arm. Two security guards instantly stepped between them. Michael straightened his suit jacket. "We aren't taking it, Mr. Sterling. We already own it. We own the building, the desks, the computers, and most importantly, the patents. Your grandfather's legacy now belongs to Eliza Vance." "Where is she?" Leon whispered. "She's in meetings regarding the acquisition of Thorn Logistics," Michael said coldly. "Which brings me to your partner." The elevator doors pinged open. Jessica stepped out. She wasn't wearing the pink suit anymore. She was in jeans and a t-shirt, carrying a large cardboard box. Her eyes were puffy from crying. "Jessica." Leon walked toward her. "Honey, we can fix this. We'll fight them in court." Jessica stopped. She looked at Leon with undisguised disgust. "Fight them with what, Leon? You have nothing." "My dad just called from Monaco. He's fleeing the country because the SEC is investigating him thanks to Eliza's audit. We are ruined." "We still have each other," Leon said weakly. Jessica laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Are you serious? Leon, I was with you because you were the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. You're nobody now. Actually, you're worse than nobody. You're the idiot who divorced a billionaire." She shifted the box on her hip. "I'm going to stay with my aunt in Ohio. Don't call me." She stepped into the elevator and was gone. Leon stood alone in the lobby of the building that used to bear his name. He had sacrificed his marriage for status, and in the end, the status walked out on him. His phone buzzed. It was Beatrice. "Leon, where are you?" she shrieked hysterically. "There are people here. They're putting foreclosure signs on the lawn. They're cataloguing the silver. Do something." "I can't, Mother," Leon said into the phone, staring at the Vance Global logo that was already replacing the Sterling sign behind the reception desk. "It's over." "But what about Eliza?" Beatrice cried. "She was a meek little mouse. How could she do this?" "She wasn't a mouse, Mother," Leon said, a tear finally rolling down his cheek. "She was a sleeping lion, and we were stupid enough to poke her." By noon, Leon was escorted out of the building with a single box of personal belongings. It contained a framed photo of him and Eliza on their wedding day. He looked at her smiling face, a face that had adored him, and realized that the woman in the photo was truly gone forever. The fall of the House of Sterling did not happen with a bang, but with a whimper that dragged on for 3 agonizing weeks. Leon Sterling had spent his entire life insulated by the soft velvet of his family's money. He had never known the biting cold of a Seattle wind without a cashmere coat to shield him. He had never known the gnawing ache of a stomach that had been empty for 24 hours. He had never known what it was like to be invisible. But he knew now. The foreclosure signs that Beatrice had screamed about were no longer threats. They were realities. The Sterling estate, a monument to 3 generations of industrial success, was seized by the bank, Eliza's bank, 72 hours after the gala. The locks were changed, the staff was dismissed. Beatrice had fled first. In a final act of maternal betrayal that shattered whatever remained of Leon's heart, she had packed her jewelry into a carry-on bag and flown to a distant cousin's villa in Tuscany, leaving Leon a voicemail that simply said, "You fixed this mess, you live in it. I cannot be seen in a city where my name is a punchline." Sarah followed suit, disappearing with a boyfriend she had met at a club, blocking Leon's number on her way out. Leon was alone. He was currently living in room 104 of the Starlight Motel, a decaying roadside establishment on the outskirts of the industrial district. The neon sign outside flickered with a maddening buzz, illuminating the water stains on his ceiling in rhythmic flashes of pink and black. He sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, staring at his hands. They were shaking. He hadn't had a drink in 2 days, not because he wanted to be sober, but because he couldn't afford the whiskey. His bank accounts were frozen. His credit cards were cut. The $45 million of debt Eliza had called in had triggered a domino effect that liquidated everything he owned. His penthouse, his cars, his stocks, all gone to pay creditors. He had $12.40 in his pocket. He looked at the suit hanging on the back of the bathroom door. It was an old charcoal grey suit, one he used to wear to construction site visits years ago. It was the only one the asset seizure team had let him keep. It was slightly too big now. The stress of the last month had carved 10 pounds off his frame. Today was the day. For 20 days, he had called Michael's office. For 20 days, he had been sent to voicemail. He had stood in the lobby of the Vance Tower, begging the receptionists, women who used to nervously straighten their blouses when he walked in, to send a message up. They looked at him now with a mixture of pity and disdain, the way one looks at a stray dog that has wandered into a fine restaurant. But yesterday, the email had come. Subject: meeting request. From Office of the CEO, Vance Global. Time: 10 a.m. sharp. Duration: 15 minutes. Leon stood up. He splashed cold water on his face in the cracked sink. He looked at his reflection. Dark circles bruised the skin under his eyes. His stubble was uneven. He looked like a ghost of the man who had been featured in GQ just 6 months ago. "You can fix this," he whispered to the mirror, his voice raspy. "She loved you. She cooked for you. She darned your socks. That woman doesn't just disappear. She's trying to teach you a lesson. You just have to show her you've learned it." He tightened his tie, grabbed his last few coins for the bus fare, and stepped out into the rain. The Vance Tower was a monolith of black glass and steel that pierced the grey Seattle sky like a needle. It was the tallest building in the Pacific Northwest, a fortress of commerce that cast a long, imposing shadow over the city. Leon stood at the base of the building, craning his neck to look up. Somewhere up there, 80 floors above the pavement, sat the woman he had thrown away. He walked through the revolving doors. The lobby smelled of white tea and money. The floors were polished marble that reflected the skylights above. Men in $3,000 suits walked briskly, shouting into earpieces, making deals that shifted the global economy. Leon walked to the security desk. "Name?" the guard asked, not looking up from his monitor. "Leon Sterling," Leon said, instinctively straightening his spine, trying to summon the authority he no longer possessed. "I have a 10 o'clock with Miss Vance." The guard paused. He looked up. His eyes scanned Leon's scuffed shoes, his frayed collar, his nervous hands. A flicker of recognition crossed the guard's face. He had seen the tabloids. "ID," the guard said flatly. Leon handed over his driver's license. The guard took an agonizingly long time to scan it, typing something into his terminal. "Take elevator bank, C, 80th floor. You have a scannable pass for exactly 20 minutes. If you are not back in the lobby by 10:25, security will be deployed." "I understand," Leon said, taking the plastic badge. The elevator ride was a sensory deprivation tank. It was silent, smooth, and fast. Leon's ears popped as the numbers on the display climbed higher. 40, 50, 60, 70. The doors slid open at the 80th floor. If the lobby was impressive, the executive penthouse was otherworldly. It wasn't an office, it was a sanctuary. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a panoramic view of the Puget Sound. But what struck Leon was the greenery. The office was filled with rare orchids, bonsai trees, and vertical gardens of lush ferns. It smelled like the garden Eliza had tended to at the Sterling estate, the garden he had mocked her for spending too much time in. "Mr. Sterling?" Leon jumped. Michael was standing by a reception desk that looked like a slab of obsidian. Michael looked impeccable, as always. He wore a navy suit that fit him like a second skin. "Hello, Michael," Leon said, hating how small his voice sounded. "She is finishing a call with the Prime Minister of Japan," Michael said, checking his watch. "You will wait here." Leon sat on a leather bench. He waited. 10 minutes passed. Every minute felt like an hour. He looked around the room, seeing the subtle signs of Eliza's taste everywhere. The art on the walls, abstract, stormy seas, the lack of clutter. It was precise. It was powerful. Why hadn't he seen it? Why had he looked at her for 3 years and seen only a simple woman who liked to read? How had he been so blind to the steel spine beneath the beige cardigans? The double doors to the inner sanctum opened. "She will see you now," Michael announced. Leon stood up. His legs felt heavy. He walked past Michael, through the doors and into the largest office he had ever seen. Eliza was standing by the window, her back to him. She was not wearing the dramatic black gown from the gala. Today, she was all business. She wore a cream-colored power suit, tailored to perfection, with her dark hair pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. She looked like a statue carved from marble. "Eliza," Leon breathed. She didn't turn around immediately. She tapped a finger against a file on her desk. "Mr. Sterling," she said. Her voice was calm, devoid of the warmth he remembered, but also devoid of the anger he expected. It was the voice of a judge delivering a verdict. "Please, sit." She gestured to a chair opposite her massive desk without looking at him. Leon sat. The chair was low, while hers was high, a classic power move. He felt like a child called into the principal's office. Eliza finally turned. She walked around the desk and sat down, folding her hands on the glass surface. Her eyes were clear, sharp, and terrifyingly intelligent. "You have 14 minutes left," she said. "Use them wisely." Leon swallowed the lump in his throat. He had rehearsed a speech. He had practiced it in the motel mirror. But looking at her now, the words died on his tongue. "I miss you," he blurted out. Eliza's expression didn't flicker. "You miss the lifestyle I provided. Or rather, the lifestyle you thought you were entitled to." "No," Leon insisted, leaning forward. "I miss you. I miss the way you used to hum when you cooked. I miss the way you'd read to me when I had a migraine. I know I messed up, Eliza. I know I was an idiot. But 3 years. 3 years has to mean something. You can't just turn off your feelings like a light switch." "I didn't turn them off, Leon," Eliza said softly. "You killed them, systematically, day by day." She opened a drawer and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. Leon recognized it. It was the journal she used to keep by her bedside. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "Your diary," Leon said. "It's a ledger," Eliza corrected. "I am a businesswoman, Leon. I track assets and liabilities. For the first year of our marriage, this book was full of happy memories. The time you brought me soup when I had the flu. The time you defended me when a waiter was rude. You were an asset then." She flipped the book to the middle. But then, the entries changed. October 14th. Leon told me not to speak at the dinner party because I wouldn't understand the topic. November 2nd. Beatrice called me a parasite in front of Leon, and he laughed. December 25th. I bought him a first edition Hemingway. He bought me a vacuum cleaner. She closed the book with a soft thud. "You became a liability, Leon. You drained my emotional capital. You devalued my self-worth. And in business, when an asset becomes a liability, you liquidate it." "I was under pressure," Leon cried, tears pricking his eyes. "The company was failing. I thought I needed someone with connections to save me. I didn't know you were the connection. If you had just told me." "If I had told you," Eliza interrupted, her voice sharpening, "you would have loved my money, not me. That is exactly why I hid. I wanted a husband, Leon, Not a business partner. Not a leech. I wanted a sanctuary where I didn't have to be the CEO. I wanted to be just Eliza. And you made just Eliza feel like she was worthless. The truth of her words hit him like a physical blow. He slumped back in his chair. Is there no chance? He whispered. No chance to start over. I've lost everything, Eliza. My mother won't speak to me. My friends have blocked me. I am living in a motel that charges by the hour. I have nothing. Eliza looked at him. For a fleeting second, he saw a glimmer of something in her eyes. Not love. Not quite pity. But perhaps acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of a tragedy. You have your health, she said matter-of-factly. You have your limbs. You have a business degree from Wharton, although you seem to have forgotten everything they taught you about ethics. She stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the bustling city. I don't hate you, Leon, she said, her back to him again. Hate requires energy. I simply don't care about you. You are a stranger who occupied my house for a while. Then why did you agree to see me? Leon asked, desperation creeping into his voice. If I'm nothing to you, why bring me up here? Just to humiliate me one last time? No, Eliza said. I brought you here because, despite everything, I am not cruel. And because I believe in second chances. But not the kind you want. She turned back to the desk and picked up a plain white envelope. She slid it across the glass toward him. Leon stared at it. What is this? Open it. Leon's hands shook as he picked up the envelope. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with the Vance Global letterhead. He read it. His brow furrowed. Employment offer. To Leon Sterling position. Junior Inventory Associate Department. Vance Logistics. Warehouse Sector 4. Starting salary, $850. Hour benefits. Standard package. Eligible after 90 days. Leon looked up, his face flushing with a mix of confusion and shame. A warehouse job? You're offering me a job? Moving boxes? It's an entry-level position, Eliza said calmly. You'll be working the graveyard shift. 10:42 p.m. to 6:00 a.m. Loading trucks, checking manifests, sweeping the floors. I was a CEO, Leon shouted, standing up. I ran a company. You ran a company into the ground, Eliza snapped. Her voice cracked like a whip, silencing him instantly. You inherited a legacy and squandered it because you were too arrogant to read the fine print and too proud to ask for help. You don't know the first thing about work, Leon. You know how to spend money, not how to earn it. She leaned over the desk, her eyes locking onto his. You said you wanted to be an equal. You said you wanted to understand business. Then start at the bottom. Learn what it means to sweat for a paycheck. Learn what it means to be tired and sore and still show up the next day. The men and women in that warehouse work harder in a week than you have in your entire life. Leon looked down at the paper. $18.50 an hour. It was less than he used to spend on a single cocktail. And if I refuse? He asked quietly. Then you walk out that door, Eliza said, sitting back down and returning her attention to her computer screen. And you figure out your own life. But know this, no one else in this city will hire you. Your reputation is radioactive. I am the only one willing to give you a lifeline. The room fell silent. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. Leon looked at the woman who had once been his wife. He looked at the luxury surrounding her, the power she commanded effortlessly. He realized then that he had never really known her. He had married a reflection of his own needs, and when that reflection shattered, he was left with nothing. He looked at the job offer. It was humiliating. It was grueling. It was also survival. He had 12 a Fortit house. The motel rent was due tomorrow. He had nowhere else to go. Slowly, painfully, Leon reached into his pocket and pulled out a cheap plastic pen he had stolen from the motel front desk. He signed the paper. He placed it on the desk. "Thank you," he choked out. The words tasted like ash. Eliza didn't look up. She simply pressed the intercom button. "Michael, Mr. Sterling is leaving. Please ensure his paperwork is processed for the night shift. He starts tonight." "Yes, ma'am." Michael appeared at the door. "This way, Mr. Sterling." Leon turned to leave. He paused at the door, his hand on the brass handle. "Eliza." She paused typing, but didn't turn her head. "Yes? If I work hard, if I prove myself, will you ever—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't know what he was asking for. Forgiveness? Love? Redemption? "Work hard for yourself, Leon," Eliza said, her voice final. "Not for me. I'm already gone." Leon nodded. He opened the door and walked out. He walked past Michael, who handed him a yellow safety vest and a plastic ID badge. "The employee shuttle leaves from the back alley in 20 minutes, Michael said, his voice devoid of mockery, strictly professional. "Don't be late. The dock foreman, Mr. Henderson, doesn't tolerate tardiness." "I won't be late," Leon said. He took the vest. It felt rough and cheap in his hands. He rode the elevator down, but this time he didn't feel the ear-popping descent of a man falling from grace. He felt the heavy, grounding thud of hitting rock bottom. He walked out of the van's tower, not through the front revolving doors, but through the side service exit. He walked into the alleyway, where a battered bus sat idling, exhaust fumes choking the air. A group of men and women in similar vests were smoking cigarettes, talking about their bills, their kids, their aching backs. Leon Sterling, former CEO, former heir, former husband of a billionaire, put on his yellow vest. He stepped onto the bus. He found a seat in the back, near a window that was cracked and taped over. As the bus pulled away, lurching into the Seattle traffic, Leon looked up one last time at the glass tower piercing the clouds. He couldn't see the 80th floor. It was obscured by the mist. He looked down at his hands. They were soft, manicured hands. Not for long, he thought. He leaned his head against the cold glass and closed his eyes. The bus drove on, carrying him away from the life he had lost and toward the long, hard road of the life he had finally earned. Wow! Talk about instant karma. Leon Sterling really fumbled the bag on that one, didn't he? He had a queen right in front of him and traded her for a pawn because he couldn't see past the surface. It just goes to show, never underestimate someone just because they're quiet, and never let your family treat your partner like trash. What do you guys think? Was Eliza too harsh by leaving Leon with nothing but a minimum wage job offer? Or did he get exactly what he deserved after 3 years of mistreatment? Let me know down in the comments. I really want to hear your take on this one. If you enjoyed this story and love seeing justice served cold, smash that like button. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss the next dose of drama. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.